Alright, how's it going, everybody? My name is Infamous Isaac, and I'm here with a video on BoJack Horseman Season 5. And if I sound a little, well, I guess not, well, yeah, monotone, but also lower than usual, it's because I just got done watching this season, and man, it was rough. Like, not tears, but it's just like, wow, man, it was dark. It was really, really dark. Oh my gosh, man. I I just want to say I can't believe I'm almost done with the show. One more season and then I'm done. It felt like this show flew by. I remember being on season 1 and I think that was like early March or I think late February if anything. I don't remember how like cuz I know it was definitely late February at the least. But it's been a long ride for sure and it's not done. It's not done for sure, but it's just crazy thinking about it. Like I've been watching this show almost nonstop with only breaks being like me having school or watching John Wick, and it's kind of hitting me right now. Like once this show is done, I'm gonna have to find something else, and I think I think I'm gonna need to watch something like a slice of life or something because man, this show is dark, bro. It's really dark. It's crazy to think about, but it just which each season something just happens. And it's just like, man, I really got to give a warning for people who may not be in the best of mental states, like because shoot, man, we all go through our own vices, our own problems, our own situations, right? I don't know how everybody's feeling, but if you aren't mentally doing good, and if you can recognize that, if you can't, then it's up to you. It's up to your judgment. But just please, like, go into this when you're ready, because it's a really heavy show for sure. It has its jokes. It is an adult animation, so like with comedy, but it gets really dark. It gets really serious. So just be ready for that. But with the spoiler free section here, I gotta give this season like a honestly 7.5 to an 8. You guys can decide whether it's 8 or 7.5 because on one hand, some of the best episodes in the entire series dropped in this season. On the other hand, I didn't laugh nowhere near as much as I did compared to like season 4 or season 3 or even season 1. Like season 4 so far has definitely been my favorite, and it may remain like that if season 6 isn't as like to me as good as that was. But season 5 to me was just like sure the dark stuff is there and it's really good. It's really really good. But season 4 really just impacted me. But that season was crazy. But I don't want to devalue season 5 like it isn't a good season. It is. The fact that I'm giving it an 8, like a 7.5 to an 8, is already good enough to be like, okay, he doesn't like some of the things in it, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad season. It's just that, in my personal opinion, like speaking in the first person now, I just didn't like some of the episodes. And I'm gonna get into that in the spoiler section, but spoiler free section, I didn't find some of the jokes funny. I was just watching and some parts, the usual dark stuff always got me, and that's something I come to learn with BoJack Horseman. That stuff will always get you, no matter what. You're always gonna be glued to your screen when you see that stuff happen. But this season, just the jokes weren't landing for me. I wasn't laughing nearly as much. I was laughing like maybe the first, second, or well, the first, third, and maybe like shoot, what episode was it? Like I think 9 and 10, around there. But oh, actually, no. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it like there wasn't episodes that didn't make me laugh. I'm just saying that they weren't as plentiful as they were last season or seasons prior. So just whether that's a good thing or bad thing, for me, it wasn't a good thing because when the dark stuff is over and the jokes just aren't landing, it's like, or excuse me, for me, then it's like, oh, then well, I have one half of the show and not the other half. But again, the jokes did make me laugh, just not as much as they did before. I just want to reiterate that. But yeah, 7.5 to 8 out of 10. Some really good episodes for sure. Music was definitely, consistent as always. Honestly, like the music just always hits in this show, and it's awesome. They really shows. But yeah, that's my rating. Let me go to the spoiler section. Spoiler free section is over. So, BoJack Horseman season 5. Where to begin but to start. Episode 1. Episode 1, where is it? The light bulb scene. The light bulb scene, I didn't like it. Honestly, I didn't like this episode. I was pretty bored watching it. Like, the B story, honestly, with Todd was the more important part to me. I actually like that part. And it's a prevalent, well, not gag, but more like decision in Todd's life that stays prevalent, or why I used that word already, but is important for the season. Like this man Todd works at this job for the entire season until the very last couple minutes of the episode of season, or excuse me, of episode 12. So it's an important decision. But Filbert is being filmed, and it's just like, oh, cool, it's underway. We have Gina, and we get to learn more about her. She's very important. Just watch out for her. But BoJack is just like, oh, I don't want to film this light bulb scene because he's questioning uh, Flip because his script is weird and it needs some adjustments, and BoJack is trying to make those adjustments. But it's typical like BoJack Horseman, like season 1, season 2 stuff. But I just didn't enjoy it, honestly. I didn't enjoy this episode much, so for me it wasn't a good start. But it gets better. It gets better. So episode 1, kind of a dud for me for sure. Episode 2, the dog days are over. Really, this season, one thing I can say for sure, it's really artsy, really artsy compared to previous seasons. Where like season 4 had a lot of serious and artsy episodes. This one has more, which is even crazier to think about. But the dog days are over. It's just basically like Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter are divorced. The papers are official, and Diane goes to Vietnam to basically rediscover herself and learn her heritage, but do the process because this is set up. Excuse me, set up as like one of her blogs that she does for Stefani. She sets it up like, oh, 10 reasons to go to Vietnam, and each reason is just Diane learning more about herself as to like Vietnam isn't my homeland. Even though she's Vietnamese, she was born in Boston and she lives in Los Angeles. She never grew up in Vietnam. She doesn't know that part of her. Like let me use myself as comparison, not to be like egotistical or anything like that or to make it about me, but it's just to me it's the most apt comparison because I know my life better than anybody else would. So I this is actually something you guys probably don't know about me, but I mentioned it before. I'm not American, or well, actually I am. I guess I'm a U.S. citizen, but whatever. I was born in the Dominican Republic. I'm Hispanic, and I grew up there for at least like one about to be 1/4 of my life, honestly. And I know Spanish. I can speak it to a certain extent. I can have conversation with my family, and that is my country of origin. That is my home. But I don't like being there. It's not my home. The U.S. is now. And I can say that because I've seen both sides of it. I grew up here and I grew up there. And so it's, if I said, oh, I'm going to go to DR to discover my roots, then that would be me legitimately going there because I have roots there in the first place. I have family, people that I know there to some extent, even if it's not a lot. I have people there that know me and that I know, and I will learn a lot about my heritage and just getting in touch with who I used to be when I was younger. But for Diane, she never grew up there, and that's not being like, oh, I'm an elite because I did grow up there. No, it's just literally as a factual statement, looking at the situation with what we were presented. Diane never grew up in Vietnam. She doesn't have those roots. She can get those roots and learn more about Vietnam, but it's wrong, not in like morally, but just and it's incorrect to say that Diane has roots in Vietnam. She's Vietnamese. She has that heritage, but she grew up in Boston and lives in Los Angeles. Like that's what it boils down to. But I thought it was super interesting because the only reason I can come to that conclusion is because the episode itself made that conclusion. She came to that conclusion, and it's a good point because before this, I would have been like, oh, She's going there to learn more about her country, to get over her divorce, and to just find herself. But at the same time, the show brings up a really good point because the show looks at the negative traits of the character, especially Diane. Diane has a lot of negative traits that have been shown in the later seasons. Like season one and two, it's like, oh, Diane, she's the cool friend, she's super smart, and she gives good advice. But then we learn more in later seasons that Diane doesn't have her life together at all, and she struggles just as much as BoJack does and anybody else. Not in the same situations like where BoJack messes up royally in almost all episode 11s, but Diane isn't doing good either. You know, she just got done with a divorce, so it's basically a good way to look at Diane's character because I would understand if you like Diane less now as the seasons go on. Diane is a mixed bag for sure. Like you like her sometimes and you don't. Diane does some pretty sleazy stuff. Sometimes even more than BoJack. And that just means sometimes, on occasion, not all the time, because BoJack does some really bad stuff. But Diane does some really sleazy stuff, and once you notice it, it's like, bro, this is really like relax. Even if it like put someone else in their shoes, right, instead of just BoJack, which is usually the person that Diane does the sleazy stuff to. We saw it in season one and we saw it in season five. But I think I'm getting my head of myself, honestly. Just let me put a pin on that point. I'll mention it later. So episode two, really artsy, really creative episode. I like this episode a lot. It was cool. Not the best episode in the season, but it's a good. It's definitely showing promise. It's showing good path forward. Planned obsolescence. I didn't like this episode mostly because of BoJack's side. I genuinely Todd's side was hilarious, and it was just really like it's dark thinking about it in this context because Yolanda is Todd's girlfriend, right? And she's also asexual. And she takes him to her house to meet her parents, and they're actual like sexual deviants. Her mom's a porn star. Her dad's I forgot what those they're like schmut. I forgot what the genre is called, but it's basically novels about sex. Her her daughter's a sexual deviant, and it's just like, or well, excuse me, her sister is a sexual deviant, and it's just like they're all sex fiends. Well, Yolanda is asexual, and she wants to impress them by having Todd be successful. And the man's a CEO. The man's super important now, and he goes there, and Yolanda mentions him having a college degree, but he doesn't. The man lives in Princess Carolyn's house, so it's just like, oh shoot, all right. But the 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 episode just gets crazy. A bunch of shenanigans happens. It's a lot of lewd and innuendos, or a lot of lewd innuendos are placed, which is kind of counterproductive, but whatever, or redundant. Excuse me. But it's a funny episode. I didn't like BoJack's side, and the jokes could be pretty pretty heavy, and not in terms of like, oh, they're dark, but just like they put them on too much. It reminds me of Princess Carolyn meeting what's his dude's name's parents. I forgot his name, but the mouse guy, or Diane meeting Mr. Peanut Butter's parents. Except this one was a lot funnier, but also kind of like it could go overboard. It could go overboard. So it's a funny episode, but the funnier ones I like more than this one. So it's good, but not great. Episode four, BoJack the Feminist. This one was funnier. This one was definitely funnier. I enjoyed this one for sure. And honestly, it was because of Mr. Peanut Butter's B side. Like a lot of B side stories in this season are doing pretty good. So Mr. Peanut Butter's B side is just basically like, oh, I'm trying to be a tough guy to get casted for better roles because the man has nothing else to do. You know, like he doesn't have a lot going for him right now as an actor, and he's trying to get some roles, and he's trying to get casted for tough guy roles, but he whatever he tries to do something evil or like tough, it ends up being a really good deed, and it helps a lot more people promoting his good guy image. And him and Todd just go around the city just trying to find the most evil, corrupted, and dirty spots in the entire town to have Mr. Peanut Butter be evil there. But every time he just helps the people there, it turns them over from, well, m- malefactors into good people, you know? And it just shows that these guys aren't just bad people, they're people that do bad things. And it's just like, they have families, they have lives. They're not just bad people, and it shows depth to them. I thought that was really cool. Like it's not like it was intentional, but it's not the focus of the story. It's like, oh shoot, like it's meant to be a joke, but I think that's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool. But the A side was kind of funny. It was just BoJack and the Filbert staff and all that. It's just Flip is making this Filbert script and it's really bad. Like in terms of feminism, it's really really bad. So Diane gets hired on as a co-writer type thing, type role, and she's helping rewrite the script because yikes is bad. It's really bad, and this leads to BoJack having some comments about feminism because one of his co-hosts is actually like truly genuinely an evil person, a horrible horrible human being, which now looking at it, BoJack isn't too far off from him, and that's kind of crazy to think about. Like BoJack is self-aware that he's a horrible person, and he tries to change, but he doesn't. He tries to change it his own way, and he relapses. The guy who was his co-star, terrible person and will never change. He's stuck in his ways, and he will always be a bad person. So it just kind of shows like BoJack has lived his life his way this entire time. He still has people that care about him, that want him to change, like Diane. So he can take the high road or he can take the low road, where he's famous, but he's alone. Or he's not as famous, but at least he's happy being in his own body. And it's just like, oh shoot. That's kind of cool with having the context of what happens later on in the season. But this episode was alright. Not the funniest, but I like Mr. Peanut Butter's B story. It was fire. Next, episode 5, one of the best episodes in the entire series, the Amelia Earhart story. It's a really good look at Princess Carolyn and just dissecting her character because it's rough for her. Like it's genuinely rough for her because we see BoJack's perspective, we see Diane. They're not holding it up together too well. We have Princess Carolyn, and she's a character that always gets the job done, even if it kills her. She is job first, everybody else second, and that includes herself. She puts herself last, if anything. And when she's dealing with people like BoJack, who's always just a mess, she barely has time for herself. So the fact that she wants a baby is just like, she's trying her hardest to make this work because she couldn't work with what's his face. I forgot his name. Was it Stewart? Not. That sounds too on the nose. I don't know. But when her and her ex-boyfriend like break up and she's trying to get a child like for adoption, she goes to see this girl down in I forgot Eden. There you go. I think Eden, North Carolina. That's where she's from. She goes down there to see this girl who wants to give up her baby for adoption, but she's basically like a young Princess Carolyn, where she's going through the same stuff. And this episode is all Princess Carolyn, so we see flashbacks. Like the A story is Princess Carolyn trying to get the baby for adoption, while the B story is Princess Carolyn's flashbacks of seeing her growing up and how she had a huge house and how she was always trying to help out her mother, how she got pregnant by some guy next door, and how they left her when she had a miscarriage. One of the 5 miscarriages that she would cum to, or not cum, excuse me, that's really disrespectful. That was a misspeak. I'm sorry. Come to find later on in her life, and it's just it's a sad story, but it's also a fire story because it explains a lot of the behaviors that she has where we see the family heirloom that she got from her mother. It was obviously a lie, but the reason why it hurt her so much is because it got her through so much. And we also see the breakdowns that she has whenever she can't do something. Because Princess PC, she can always do stuff, but we see that we peel the curtain back behind the person, and now we see who's really there. And it's a person who's been through a lot, but she keeps it together at least as much as she can. And it's sad to see sometimes, but it makes her a better character for it. Like Princess Carolyn isn't like the best put together person in the show, but she's probably the best put together person in the show compared to others. So it's like I gotta give it to her. One of my friend who recommended the show to me, he was like, "This is one of his favorite episodes, and Princess Carolyn's probably his favorite character." and I can see why now. Like, she's really good. She's really good for sure. For me, honestly, it might be Mr. Peanut Butter. He might be my favorite, but I really hope that they give him some development. Like, I hope we get to see his flashback. We did see one here, but I wish we saw more, not just the one that we got. But immediately followed, like following one of the best episodes in the entire series, in my opinion, the Amelia Earhart story, is the best episode in the entire series, which is crazy to think about, right? Because this is episode 6, not episode 11. But episode 6, Free Churro, I don't say this lightly, is the best episode in the entire series by far. And I don't mean that like, oh, so far from what I've seen. No, like, I literally looked it up. The same way that I did in Breaking Bad, how Ozymandias is the best episode of the entire show. Free Churro is the best episode of the entire show. It's that highly rated. I think it's like a 9.8 or something. Like, this episode, people love. People love this episode, and it's crazy to see how much they actually love it. And it just is really cool to see because you have all these episodes in the earlier seasons that I really liked, and they're also on the list too. It was super. It was fire. It was honestly really fire. But Free Churro is. I have no disagreements with the fact that this episode is the best episode in the entire series. My favorite episode is probably Time's Arrow, but Free Churro, it is the best episode. It's the BoJack Horseman episode. If you want to show people what this show is about, honestly, like if you want to get people to get enticed, like let's say, for example, with uh, Better Call Saul, right? No spoilers for that. Just like an example. My friend, the same one who recommended this show to me, was like, "Yo, you gotta watch Better Call Saul after you finish Breaking Bad," and I was like, "All right, yeah, bet." And he showed me episode 10, Uno, and that episode immediately got me to watch Better Call Saul. This episode would be an episode that I would watch to get into BoJack Horseman. It's that good, which kind of sucks because at the same time, you shouldn't show people this episode as an introduction to this show because it's the episode that Beatrice dies. We're at her funeral, and BoJack is giving a speech. Like it's a heavy spoiler, super heavy spoiler. It should not be an introduction episode, but it is a good example of wow, this show is really good, like really really good. But yeah, like I said, it's Beatrice died. She was in a nursing home and she passed away from the insomnia, or not insomnia, excuse me, dementia. And BoJack is in the funeral home giving a speech, and it wouldn't be BoJack without him making a bunch of digs and bashes at her mom, or excuse me, at his mom. But it's just him talking, right? How a lady at a drive-through was like, "Oh, I hope you're having an awesome day," and he was like, "No, my mom died," and she started crying, and she was like, "I'm so sorry. Please have a free churro," and that's why it's called free churro. But the meaning behind that churro was literally like, that lady that I will never meet again was nicer to me than my mom ever was in my entire life, my 54 years of living. And it was just him talking about how his dad wasn't a good person, but his mom was worse, way worse, and how like at you notice throughout the show that BoJack and Beatrice never like they never loved each other, right? Beatrice is hate like spiteful towards BoJack, but the one time that we see her genuinely like show emotion towards him was the end of Time's Arrow, and back in like Secretariat, I think episode 1, or well, season 2 episode 1, I think, when they were filming Secretariat. And it was just it sucks, man, because I was really hoping, like the good in me was hoping that BoJack at the end of the day would be like, but I still loved her, even though I can't condone what she did. I still loved her. No, BoJack hates her so much that he can't even bring himself to say that he loves her at all. Like, because like family issues exist no matter what, right? We're all human, and that's bound to happen. Your family members aren't you aren't born from your mother and father or from whoever birthed you. because they're perfect for you. You're born from them because they birthed you, you know? And like God preordained that you would come through from them. Obviously, it's not the easy road, but it's not guaranteed that you'll have good parents. And whether you believe in God or not, you know, it's up to you. Like you can just say, you know, it's all up to random chance who you get with who you're born with, and I'm not here to debate that because that's not me, you know. I'm not like that, and I'll respect your opinion for it. Like it again, it's what you believe in, not what I believe in. But it's just literally you were born with who you're born with, and you can't change that. That's really what happens. So you can try to get new parents, but your biological parents will still exist, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to live with your biological parents or love your biological parents. You can have new ones. You could literally get adopted, or you could have people that are literally as good, if not better, than a parental figure. And it's like that. That's the beauty of life. You make those bonds yourself. You know, you forge them, and you decide what they are. But regardless, Free Churro just it's 26 minutes of BoJack talking about his mom and about himself and about his dad, and it's just it was a really rough episode. It was really rough. Like all of that to say that BoJack checked the casket because she wanted an open uh, casket funeral. Excuse me, Beatrice did, and he checks and he's like, whose whose casket is this? Who is this? And it turns out he gave this entire speech at the wrong funeral home, and that's where the episode ends because he got the wrong place. And let me tell you, my friend told me the plot twist of this episode, but it's still so funny. Like it's really messed up because it kind of says something about BoJack how even after she's dead, he still managed to mess up the funeral home speech. Not the speech itself because it was like it was open, it was really honest, but it's the fact that he went to the wrong spot, the wrong room, and it's just like, man, that's so messed up. That's so sad, but that's so funny. Like, oh man, Free Churro is definitely the best episode of the show, no doubt. Times Arrow is my favorite, but Free Churros, it's the best for a reason. I can see why people love it so much. But episode 7, Int Sub, really artsy and creative episode. I like this episode because it just literally the episode it takes two people, right? It takes a mediator and a therapist. Diane's therapist and a mediator for Princess Carolyn and Todd's dispute. And they both describe their situations, which are similar because the characters interact. And they don't use the people's names because they can't. That's professional integrity, you know. You're not supposed to leak your clients' conversations out to people, even if it's your loved ones, so they have to use different names. And BoJack is Bobo the zebra. Diane is Diana, Princess Diana. Yeah, Princess Carolyn, who is an intangible uh, gas of female yearning. I think is what it's called. Like it was a lot longer than that, but Todd is Mr. Hand or whatever, and Mr. Peanut Butter was Chocolate Dog. He was like brown to dark skinned. It was really jarring, really jarring. Flip was a dolphin, and just Princess Carolyn turned into a crab as well, because both of them had Princess Carolyn in their story, and it was just like wow, okay, yeah, but I like the fact that they changed the intro for the show as well to have Bobo the what's it called, the antsy or the angsty zebra. There you go. I don't think they changed the title of the show for this episode, but it was Bobo himself, not BoJack, for almost the entire show. But overall, this episode was cool. It was creative. It was artsy. It was interesting. But in terms of the plot, it was okay. It was just Diane's therapist telling her not to interact with BoJack for a time, but just have some space. But BoJack, you know, that's her or his friend. You know, why would she just distance herself from him out of nowhere, right? So he went to the bottom of it, and he started seeing the therapist to just talk to her, to have somebody to talk to, and that leads to some hijinks. Diane takes a lot more space from BoJack because of it, because it was pretty messed up. But Princess Carolyn and Todd, on the other hand, argue about string cheese because Todd thinks that she ate it, or excuse me, that she ate it. Yes, I'm stuttering so bad. I'm so sorry. And that Princess Carolyn was just like, no, I didn't do it. And then at the end of the episode, they find out Todd had the string cheese in his pocket the whole time. She didn't eat it. Crazy. But yeah, episode 7, it was cool. Not the best, but it was cool. Episode 8, I didn't like. I didn't like this episode. Even though it was creative and it was cool, I don't know. I didn't like it, honestly. And it was basically Mr. Peanut Butter has this thing where he goes to BoJack's house for Halloween, right? And BoJack was just like, "Yo," or actually, Mr. Peanut Butter was like, "Yo, you want to come to this Halloween party that I'm having?" And then BoJack was like, "No, I don't. I really don't. I have a Halloween party that I have to attend to." And Mr. Peanut Butter was just like, "Oh shoot, well if that's the case, then why don't I come over to yours and bring my party to your house?" Which is really really bad, by the way, really bad decision. But this happened back in 1993, and it's been going on for 25 years because it's 2018 in the show. So it's like, oh shoot, yeah, 25 years. And 2023, the year that we're now, the year of our Lord, it would have been 30 years if the show kept going for until 2023. But that's crazy to think about. That's crazy. But yeah, so BoJack Horseman, yeah. Wow, I'm so sorry. I don't know why I dropped the title of the show like that. It was weird. But yeah, episode 8 literally just that Mr. Peanut Butter brought all of his ex-wives to this party, and BoJack Horseman every time, or BoJack is just like, "Yo, stop doing this at my house." But then every time when the party's over, he's always so drunk that he's like, "Let's do it again next year," and then that's what always happens. And Mr. Peanut Butter brought I forgot what's her name, uh, but his first wife, the one who was in season 4 of this show, and then Jessica, and then Diane, and now Pickles. He brought 4 of the people he's seen romantically. 3 of them were his wives. One of them was, what's it called? His girlfriend. And each time, a fight always happens, and that's why the party ends, because Mr. Peanut Butter and his significant other always get into a fight. And it changes their lives radically for the rest of the time that they're together. And it's the reason why they usually break up. They get divorced. And Pickles is like, she's worried that she's a rebound, but the sad truth about it is that she is. Mr. Peanut Butter just can't handle his emotions for Diane, because Diane was the reason that they got divorced. Mr. Peanut Butter, like, well, I don't want it to seem like Diane was the sole reason. Diane wanted to get the divorce, is what I'm saying. Mr. Peanut Butter was the reason why they got the divorce, because he never listens. He never listens to what the other person wants, and that leads to them having a big falling out, and then they get divorced. Diane, which I don't blame her for getting divorced, it's just, would her life have been better if she was with Mr. Peanut Butter or if she was in her studio? It's the question. But nobody knows, because hindsight's 2020. How would we know? But she got divorced from him because of that, because he never listens, and now he's with Pickles. And Pickles and him got attached like super quick. And if Mr. Peanut Butter didn't do that, he probably would have been able to get back with her, or at the very least keep things amicable more than they are now. Which is not like they're bad, but they could be a lot better, because now things are irreparable. Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane are moving on, or so we think, at the least. But this episode, didn't like it that much. It was alright, nothing crazy. Asian history. Asian history was a really good episode. I like this one for sure, because Hollyhock comes back, and I was wrong about her for sure. I was definitely wrong about her with season 4, and I learned that very quickly. But I just wanted to talk about it again because Hollyhock is a really good character. She's so good for BoJack. It's just that BoJack isn't good for BoJack, so it's difficult. It's difficult for him to love her, even though they're brother and sister. Hollyhock comes over to California in this episode, and it's to visit BoJack for a little bit before she goes back to Connecticut for a break. For uh, a break between what's it called? Her semesters in college, and she sees that BoJack is taking medicine because his back got messed up from the accident that he was in, and now he's addicted to opiates or opiates, I think. Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. And she has a lot of PTSD from the fact that Beatrice drugged her. Whether it was by accident or on purpose, who knows? But I don't think it was by accident. And that's the scary part. But she has a bunch of PTSD, and she threw out his pills. And BoJack is basically an addict now. Like he's fiending for it, and that's the only way that he can keep living. But the pills are making him into a worse person. And the whole episode they're just going through and they're trying to find pills for BoJack because he needs them. But Hollyhock finds out he doesn't need them. He was just lying about that. He's addicted to it. And at the end of the episode, they're just like, "Oh shoot, well, I mean, I'm sorry for throwing your pills away, but please, just like, you don't need them." And he's like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't need them." And she says, "I love you," as like brother sister thing, but he doesn't say it back, and that hurt me. That really hurt me. Not crying hurt me, but it's just like, man, BoJack, this is your one time. That would have been one step forward in the road of redemption, but she blew it. She still loves him, but BoJack isn't trying to change, like at all. And it's just, it sucks, man. Genuinely sucks. But episode 10, Head in the Clouds, a really heavy episode. The episode's just basically they go to the Filbert premiere to show this show we'll be filming all that stuff. With Diane's influence and Flip's script, they make this show and people really love it. And Gina and BoJack are dating. They're doing really good and things are going well. But one thing I didn't mention is that Diane found out about what happened in Escape from LA, and she doesn't know everything about it, but she finds out because her and BoJack they finally have a fight at the end of this episode where it's like they're talking about it and BoJack finally spills the beans because he's he's victim blaming himself first. He's yeah he well no. He's victimizing himself. He's playing victim when in reality BoJack suffers because of his own actions. And he's trying to blame that like, oh, it's uncontrollable. No, like BoJack, you do that to yourself. Like this is your fault, and you don't change. You don't try to change. You don't seek help when you need help the most. Especially now that you're drugged up on all these opiates. Like you're living a thoughtless existence where you're having sex with Gina all the time, and she lives in your house. It's like, oh, that's cool, but at the end of the day, what's gonna happen after the show is done? Like, and the show is done, and like, oh, they're doing great. They're gonna get renewed for a second season, but it's like, what happens next? What happens next? Gina is definitely not the right one for him. But regardless, Diane and him talk, and Diane just basically she's done with him. She's done with BoJack. She can't handle it anymore. She's not responsible for other people's suffering. But she leaves, and BoJack just spirals into more drug-heavy use. And this leads us to episode 11. At first, I thought this episode wasn't going to be like another one of like, oh, Escape from LA or the book episode from season one or That's Too Much Man or Time's Arrow. I didn't think it was going to be like that because it started off somewhat normal. But then it's called Showstopper for a reason because it actually stopped the show. But regardless, episode 11 is BoJack super high on opiates and he's just going about his day. It's like season 3 where he was blacking out and his show and like his life was just merging in between and things were happening. But BoJack, since he's filming season 2 of Filbert and his house and like Filbert are so similar to each other, he he starts confusing Filbert for himself, and he can't differentiate if he's Filbert or if he's BoJack anymore because their lives are so similar. Like as cringy as that sounds, it's true. It's genuinely true. He's becoming more like Filbert, and Filbert's becoming more like his real life. And man, he just starts spiraling out of control. He's super drugged up on opiates, and there's this scene in this episode where it's him having this vision of him or well, not him, but of Gina doing like a Broadway musical, right? Of just, it was really dark. It was really eerie as well. Like, there was so many things in that musical that just, it showed it, well, not foreshadowed, but it showed everything in his life that was important in very eerie and disturbing ways. And it was just, wow. It was crazy to think about, genuinely crazy. But episode 11, it started off like a normal BoJack episode and spiraled into bad. Oh my gosh, things just got worse. And I don't mean like, oh, the quality got worse. No, like, it was great. That's the worst part. The fact that it was good makes it worse because BoJack, when Gina tries to stop him from taking all these opiates, A, from ruining for her career, but B, to stop him, he spirals out of control. And it skips from him being at his house and Gina taking the pills to BoJack strangling Gina in one of the scenes because that was one of the shots. But he didn't realize that the shot was over and he kept strangling and he kept strangling and he almost kills her. And Mr. Peanut Butter and everybody else on the set have to intervene and they stop BoJack. And that's the end of the episode. BoJack almost killed somebody. And episode 12 is the stop show because literally the showstopper was the reason why episode 12, the stop show, exists. Philbert got canceled. Or one of the reasons why Philbert got canceled. The other reason was because of Henry, the sex bot. But regardless, episode 12, the backlash from the video got leaked because people on the set were recording. And Bojack didn't realize what happened because he was so drugged up. And once he saw the video from Princess Carolyn, he wanted to be exposed. He wanted to be taken down. And he does an interview with Gina, and it was just super Hollywood. It was fake. It was not genuine. They were forcing it so the show could continue, but once it's over, Gina will never talk to him again, ever. And it's just like I don't blame her, you know. I don't blame her because BoJack, he's the main character, but you can't excuse outside forces influencing your own actions. You are like his motor functions, he didn't have control over them. He didn't have control over his faculties, but it doesn't matter, you know. He made the decision to take the drugs, and this is what happens when you do that. You lose control and you hurt the ones that you love. And he needs help. Genuinely, not in the sense of looking down on him, but in general, BoJack needs help, serious help. He needs rehab. And after that interview is done, and he goes to Diane, he's like, "Please expose me. Please do a blog on me. Anything. Just make me feel responsible." And Diane's like, "No, because you have to hold yourself accountable, not other people. You know, you have to fix what's wrong. You have to live with what you've done, but you have to try to do better. You know, only you can do better." And Diane has this conversation with Stefani where it's like Stefani mentions how she sets or Diane sets herself to a unreachable standard of like you try to do better but you're human. There's no good or bad, there's just people who do good and bad things. And Diane uses that on BoJack, how he's a man who does good and bad things, but people can change, you know, people can change. It's just up to you whether you want to or not. You say you want to change, but you never do. You never do. And that's the thing about it, you know. That's the thing about it. But yeah, the end of the episode's basically Diane taking BoJack to rehab and explaining all that, like, yo, go here, change your life up. Maybe you won't be a better person, but at least you'll be a start. And she goes there, she leaves. That's the end of the episode. I forgot to mention Todd kills Henry because he became the CEO, like, of the building. And Henry was originally meant to help Emily with her relationship problems, but then it spiraled out of control because he became the leader of the establishment. But then he got outed as a sexual harasser, and the whole building just got like basically it, it had to I forgot what it was called, subsidized, I think it was what, I don't remember, but they had to reduce the building size and do a bunch of layoffs and just start from scratch. But regardless, that's the end of season 5. It was wow. Hi. This season it is difficult. Like it's a 7.5 to an 8 still even after talking about it. But it's for different reasons. Like again, it it just didn't make me laugh as much as the other ones did. And again, I'm not looking for all laughs all the time because if I did, I wouldn't have finished watching season 1 and 2. But just the jokes when they were there, which there were a lot of. Like BoJack still has jokes no matter how serious the episode gets. But they just weren't landing for me. Not some of the jokes just were annoying to me or didn't land. While the ones that were funny were really funny, I gotta give them to them. I just didn't enjoy it as much as season 4, and that's fine. I can't expect every episode, every season to be a free churro or uh, what's the word, Times Arrow, or a funny episode like Commence Fracking or Run Mr. Peanut Butter or See Mr. Peanut Butter Run. Like these episodes had their own charm, and I don't doubt that there's people out there who like season 5 as their favorite season. I don't blame you. I generally don't blame you. That's you. That's your opinion. I have mine. Right? But this season to me just wasn't up to par compared to last season. Better than most. Better than season 1. Probably better than season 2, honestly. But just not my favorite. Definitely not my favorite. But I still got a lot of enjoyment from it because even though I didn't like it as much as other seasons, this season for sure had some of the best episodes in the entire show. Amelia Earhart's story. What's it called? Free Churro. You have Gone Are the Dog Days. You have The Showstopper, and The Stop Show. Like some of the best episodes in the series, and they're so good. They're generally just so good. I can't find a way to describe them. They're creative. They're artsy. They're interesting. They're different. That's what I love about this show is that it's just different. It's awesome. But it also just feels like we're in season 5 now. If BoJack Horseman ended in season 5, I don't know how I would have felt, right? Because season 6 goes on and it's the final season. It's the final season. But season 5 feels like okay, maybe we're pushing it a little bit because season 4 felt amazing. It felt so awesome. If season 5 ended it, then I wouldn't have minded honestly because I feel like we can only do the BoJack starts off the season. He's in a bad spot, but he's getting better. He's having a fun time, but he goes back to the BoJack relapse. And episode 11 is the culmination of all that, where it all comes crashing down, and it's a very important moment in his life that changes his life forever, the course of his life forever. Because it has serious implications every time that something happens. But I feel like this season for sure, it felt like it was retreading ground. And obviously, like that's going to happen because it's a 6 season show. But I felt like the other times that it retread ground, it was different every time that it did it. Episode 11 of season 1 felt different, and season 1 for that reason felt different. It was about the book. Season 2 was about Secretariat. Season 3 was about honestly, what was season 3 about? I completely forgot. I think it was Secretariat spilling over into Secretariat being canceled and BoJack just trying to reel from the success that's coming from it, but also reeling from the fallout of that, of other things happening. But Sarah Lynn dies in season 3, episode 11. So that also happens, and then it spawns back to episode 4, excuse me, season 4, episode 1, and it shows BoJack going to the farm, to the Sugarman farm. Then it shows him trying to get better, coming back, relapsing to the same BoJack cycle. And what makes this different is because it's Beatrice's season, and it's his family, and it makes the season the most impactful out of all of them. And that's why that cycle felt the most different because it was the most different. Episode 11 wasn't about BoJack at like much, honestly. It was about Beatrice and her life. Same with episode 2. Season 5, on the other hand, was about Filbert, which was close to Secretariat, but instead of a movie, it's a show. And while I'm not saying that this season is similar or like copying season two. I'm just saying that it felt like if this season wasn't here, and like let's say episode two, episode five, episode six, and episode 11 and 12 were in episode or in season six, I wouldn't have minded. Like honestly, I wouldn't have minded because I feel like season five has some good episodes, some great episodes, and some bad episodes. I feel like with season six, I hope that since it's the final episode, that like retread ground doesn't happen one more time, and then it's just like people are moving forward. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to expect for season six. It's the longest one for a reason, but I just hope that when episode 11 comes and that happens, that it comes to a conclusion and it doesn't just retread ground and it shows that like BoJack will never change type stuff because that's really depressing. That's super depressing. But I don't know. That just turned into me talking about season six expectations. But season five, it was good. It was good. It wasn't my favorite. Does it need to exist? I don't know. It's debatable. I need to see season six to really tell if it needed to exist. Excuse me, season five needed to exist. But so far, I'm gonna say it does because of some of the best episodes in the series being in this season. But I'm gonna I'm gonna hold off my definitive judgment on that until I see it. But anyways, hope y'all enjoy. Thank y'all for watching. I've been talking for 50 minutes, so I'm gonna be ending it now. I hope y'all have a good rest of your day, and let me know what you guys think of BoJack Horseman season 5 in the comments. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.